We have a ton of onions, y'all. What am I going to do with them today? Stick around and find out. And I'm making Amish sourdough bread. If you're interested in either one of these, stick around. I'll have more details in the description box below this video. Well, hey y'all, and welcome to the Hillbilly Chicken Ranch. I'm Susan, your hostess, and this is another episode of the Resourceful Homestead. Today I'm going to be doing a few things, and I thought I'd bring you into the kitchen because I'm going to be working on some projects. Every year around Mother's Day, a local nonprofit group called Civitan has a Vidalia onion sale, and you can buy a 10-pound bag of Vidalia onions for $10, and we usually buy 2 bags. So I've got approximately 20 pounds of onions I need to work through. I've already pulled a couple of them out and cooked with them, and they are beautiful onions. Let me tell you, just beautiful. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to be chopping some of these up for the dehydrator. Some of them are going to go into the freezer, and we're going to have these for long-term storage. Now the freezer ones we'll probably use first, but the dehydrated ones we'll use when we run out of onions and still have fresh onions. And yellow onions and red onions contain quercetin, and so you want to preserve that as much as possible because that helps your lungs. So I'm going to save all these skins because I can use them in a vegetable stock later on, so they'll go into a bag. And I never cut the root off because that is where the most potent part of this onion is. So we're going to leave that intact while we chop up some onions. So just basically I'm going to peel off the outer layer of the onion. Shelves ready, or trays. I've got them over here ready to go. And I'm going to set my dehydrator for 125 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want to cook them or dehydrate them any higher temp because what happens is they brown and they'll become bitter. But if you do it on a lower temperature, you'll get pretty onions. So that is the plan for today. And then I also need to get my sourdough starter started. So my tray holds about 2 of the Vidalia onions because they're very large. And you want to kind of break up your pieces as much as possible and spread them out evenly over your shelf. I'm going to go ahead and set this in there. I've got 3 more shelves to do. But before I finish, I want to let you know that I'm using this waffle weave mat that came with my dehydrator for this. All right, I have my trays loaded, and I'm going to get them into our Excalibur food dehydrator. I'm going to put the door on. And I'm doing this out on our back porch, but you can also do it in a garage or even outside if you need to. But I've got it set to about 125. I'm going to turn the unit on and allow this to dehydrate those onions. The reason you do it outside is because onions are very, very pungent, and you don't want that in your house or you'll be crying. Get that paper off. And just slice your onions however thick you want them to be. Get my bag ready and break them apart as you're putting them in the bag. I did the same thing for the onion rings and for my chopped onions. Come back here. Even the little pieces can go in this bag. So you want them loose in the bag because you're going to be taking them out a little at a time. I've got 8 packs or 8 onions chopped, and I usually use a half cup, so each bag would be 1 serve or 2 servings. So that's going to go into the freezer, and I double bag to keep the odor of onions down out of the freezer. I also did up a small bag of onion rings because my husband and I love onion rings. I didn't overpack the bag, and it is double bagged as well. All right, we have the Amish sourdough starter. It's got a little bit of hooch on top, which is normal. It also burped. I'm going to give it a good stir. We're going to transfer this to a clean jar. Okay. You never want to put sourdough starter down your drain because it will harden in your drains, but you can rinse your jar really good and toss it outside. So my Amish friend gave me this book. Well, she loaned me the book, and I made a copy of it. And her note inside said, have your sourdough in a quart jar. If you want to bake bread on a Wednesday, you need to start on Tuesday morning. Add 1 cup of flour, 2/3 cup of water, and stir it up with a plastic scraper really well, and then set it till evening. Stir it up real well and take it out. Take out 1 cup of starter and work your bread dough. So we're going to get this set up. I'm going to grab my funnel, and we're going to put the flour and the water in the jar. 2/3 cup of water, and it doesn't have to be warm water. I'm going to give that a really good stir, and then we're going to add our flour. And I am using organic whole wheat flour that I got at our local Mennonite store. We're trying to go as organic as we possibly can. And I do have wheat berries, but I don't have the grinder yet, so I have to wait on that. So it's 1 cup of flour. And mix until all the flour is incorporated. I'm just going to set my lid loosely on top, and you want to set it in a warm spot and let it rise till it's doubled. So this jar should be just about full when it's doubled. My starter has doubled. And we're going to add in 1.5 cups of water. I'm going to give that a stir. I'm adding in 1/3 cup of organic sugar, 1½ teaspoons of salt. Now I'm using Himalayan salt, so I may have some pink showing through in this, and I'm adding in 1/3 cup of olive oil. You can use olive oil or lard or any kind of oil that you have on hand. And we're going to dish out about 6½ cups of flour. So let me grab a spoon. And I'm going to work this into the dough with my hands at this point until I get at least 6 to 6½ cups of flour incorporated. My final little bit of kneading in here and making sure that I've got all the flour incorporated into this bread. I'm forming it into a ball, and I'm going to leave it in the bowl. Got a little bit of oil left in my thing there. I'm just going to wipe that over the top. So my hands are fairly clean. And there is my dough. I'm going to cover my bowl with some plastic wrap, and then I'm going to cover it with a towel. And I'm going to allow it to sit on my counter until about the time I go to bed. And then it'll go into our refrigerator overnight. And in the morning we'll be back and we'll set up this bread for baking. I do want to mention that I am doing this bread in the afternoon. I've got a mess to clean up. We'll be back tomorrow. Well, good morning and welcome back to the Hillbilly Chicken Ranch. And we're have had our dough out of the refrigerator for a couple of hours, and you can see how much it has risen in my bowl. I don't have my overhead camera set up today, so we're just going to wing it. But I'm going to save my plastic wrap because I'm going to be using it again. And this should pull away pretty easy. So there's our bowl. And I'm going to just work it for a minute. And I'm going to cut it into half. It really looks like a whole wheat bread, I'm telling you. We're going to get it squared out. And I'm just going to do a simple roll on this. Pinch, pinch, pinch. Pinch that bottom. Tuck in our ends. And into our loaf pan. So there is our loaf in the loaf pan. Do the same thing with this one. Oh, I forgot. I've got to take a pinch of dough. We're going to save that. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that in just a second. So I'm just going to roll it again. A good pinch on the bottom. Tuck in my ends and fold over and pinch. There's our second loaf. So we're going to put some plastic wrap over it. We're going to lay our towel back over it. Oh, before I do that, I do want to put a little bit of oil on it. It just helps keep the moisture in. I'm just going to rub it on with my fingers. Just across the top. And it keeps it from drying out while it's rising. So, let me grab a towel. And get my plastic wrap, and we'll be right back. Why did I save the piece of dough? Well, I saw online where you take a piece of dough and you drop it into a glass of cold water and it will sink. But when it rises to the top, your bread is perfectly proofed and you can put it in the oven. So we're going to wait for that dough to rise and we'll be back when it's risen. While we're waiting for the bread to rise in the oven and to bake, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the onions. If you ever get an onion in your house and you start noticing black spots on it, or you cut into it and it has a ring inside that has turned bad, you've had an infection in your house. You don't want to eat that onion. You want to throw it away. So onions will absorb infections. Little tip from my Amish friends, she said never eat an onion that's got any kind of blemishes on it. So we want to make sure that we're eating good solid onions. In case you want the recipe, this is sourdough bread. It's 1 cup of your starter, 1/3 cup of sugar, 1½ teaspoons of salt, 1½ cups of warm water, 1/3 cup of oil or lard. You want to knead it well, cover with a cloth and plastic, and let it rise for 6 to 8 hours, punching down at least once. Form into loaves and put in pans. Cover with cloth and plastic wrap and let it rise in a warm place, 85 to 90 degrees, until double, and bake in an oven preheated to 350 degrees. She says, I bake a 21-ounce loaf for 28 minutes. Dough enhancing ingredients such as lecithin or wheat gluten may be added. This makes a soft, flexible bread that is great for sandwiches. The author of this book also said the fermentation process is reputed to break down the gluten and starches in wheat, making it more acceptable for diabetics and those that are gluten intolerant. In other words, the sugar and flour have been digested. You will need about 8 to 10 hours of rising time to have that benefit. Recipes with sourdough often lend themselves better to the use of alternative flours. Another benefit of sourdough is that it stays fresher longer. So it breaks down the sugar and the starches in the flour, and you'll have a little bit of a sweet taste to your bread, and it doesn't take a lot of sugar. And when you use the raw sugar, it enhances the process of the sourdough. The sourdough dough absolutely loves getting all the nutrients out of that raw, unfiltered sugar. Alrighty, it's been an hour. Nice soft loaves. Did have a little bit of cracking on the sides with this loaf. I didn't get the score deep enough. And this loaf is just perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice into this loaf first. And we're going to see what the crumb looks like. You don't want to slice into it too soon because if you do, it'll become gummy. But looky there. Beautiful bread. Absolutely lovely. I'm going to taste it. Mmm. The onions and the dehydrator have been going for about 24 hours and they still need some more drying time. So y'all check back on Monday and I will show you the finished product in Monday's video. Be blessed and a blessing.